Pretty sure we have a terrorist sympathizer working in the halls of Congress, and yet everyone is focused on a tweet the president sent out. It's a tweet. The big story is the al-Qaeda sympathizer, and the fact that Ilhan Omar, she refuses to denounce them, and the fact that Ayanna Pressley refuses to denounce Antifa. Say it with me, ladies. I do not support al-Qaeda. I do not support Antifa. See? See that? It's not that hard, unless it's not true. I do not support al-Qaeda. I do not support al-Qaeda. Look, it's not that hard to say. And yet Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, she won't say that simple sentence. We didn't get that from her. Yesterday, the Hamas caucus, they gave a press conference. Think about this. They took an entire day to plan a press conference to respond to a tweet. I mean, shouldn't their constituents be furious right now? Like, is that what they're paying them to do? To organize a press conference to respond to a 280-character message from the president? Now, should the president have told Ilhan Omar to go back to her original country? Yes. The other three, though, doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, they're from America. But like we said yesterday, Rashida Tlaib, she didn't really seem upset by the fact that the president implied she was not from America. She said, "Excuse me, sir, but I, for one, am very proud of my Palestinian heritage." But Ilhan Omar, who, if you remember, she took a terrorism class. Yeah, she took a very terrorism class. She still will not denounce al-Qaeda. Watch.
Can you respond to some of the president's specific claims, most notably that you're a communist and that you're pro-al-Qaeda?
You might have noticed how when he said, go back to where you came from, there was an uproar through all of our communities, because every single person who's brown and black at some point in their life in this country heard that. Now, when he made the comment, I know that every single Muslim who has lived in this country and across the world has heard that comment. And so I will not dignify it with an answer. I do not expect every time there is a white supremacist who attacks, or there is a white man who kills in a school or in a movie theater or in a mosque or in a synagogue, I don't expect my white community members to respond on whether they love that person or not. And so I think it is beyond time. It's beyond time to ask Muslims to condemn terrorists. We are no longer going to allow the dignification of such ridiculous statement.
So that was not a denunciation. And one more thing about everyone saying every black and every brown person has been told at some point in their life to go back to their country. I gotta say from personal experience, I've never been told to go back to my country. I don't know, maybe they're saying it behind my back, but I don't think that's a thing unless you espouse foreign ideologies, all right? So asked to denounce communism, asked to denounce al-Qaeda, she skirted it. She skirted it like an Argentinian steak, and then somehow implied that if she has to answer for al-Qaeda, then all white men should have to answer for mass shootings. And it's not true that the president never has to answer for mass shootings. Every time there is a mass shooting, the slops in the media, they come rushing to him, Mr. President, will you denounce the shooter? And he, of course, does. And you know, most white guys you talk to are happy to denounce mass shootings. But she's not happy to denounce al-Qaeda. She's not happy to denounce communism. The problem here is, little missy, is that you will not denounce al-Qaeda. And to this day, we have no record, we have no instance of this woman saying, yes, I denounce al-Qaeda, I denounce terror. So Trump is absolutely right to call her out on that. It's horrifying. Here's what he said about her yesterday.
I mean, I look at Omar, I don't know, I never met her. I hear the way she talks about al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has killed many Americans. She said, you can hold your chest out. You can, when I think of America, when I think of al-Qaeda, I can hold my chest out. When she talked about the World Trade Center being knocked down, some people, you remember the famous some people? These are people that, in my opinion, hate our country.
I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, he's not just making it up. You know, if you search for Ilhan Omar al-Qaeda on Google, the only thing that comes up are New York Times, CNN, and ABC articles about how the president is lying about her comments on al-Qaeda. Well, watch them for yourself. There is enough evidence out there to raise serious concerns about Ilhan Omar's love for these terrorist groups.
I remember when I was in college, I took a terrorism class, and
is that a such thing?
Yeah, there was.
So there is a lab for that?
There was a class that you.
Do you go to a lab?
No,
go out a field trip.
We learned the ideology of.
I'm glad you do that.
And so it was the thing that was interesting in the class was every time the professor said al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and you know.
Yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, you know, Hasbullah.
He's an expert.
And it was, you know,
what's his name? What to put his name on
we
Where does he live?
Saying his name.
Yeah.
You probably get to see him on CNN. And,
yeah, of course. I love those guys.
But you know, but it is that you don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You know, you don't say the army with an intensity.
Qaeda.
But you say these names because you want that word to carry weight.
I mean, that's literally what the president said. Lying about her words about al-Qaeda. Well, it wasn't an exact quote. He can't paraphrase. You know, al-Qaeda, al-Qaeda. You say it with big strength. And then she's laughing about it or yucking it up with the professor. I mean, she's scoffed at the idea that a professor in America, a professor at a university in America would profess concern and take seriously a terrorist organization like al-Qaeda. I mean, what's so scary about al-Qaeda? Nothing, I guess, if you're one of their supporters. And this flippancy toward our enemy, an enemy that has killed and tortured thousands of people worldwide, it's not an isolated incident. It's not like, oh, come on, now we all find terrorist organizations a little funny from time to time. Give the Congresswoman a break. No, it's a recurring theme with her.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Some people did something. Those people she's talking about are al-Qaeda. I mean, I truly do not understand how any American could tolerate such a casual dismissal of a terror group like the al-Qaeda thugs. Does Ilhan Omar, does she condone their actions? We don't know because she won't condemn them. You know, not every Muslim in America is on tape yucking it up. They want to say this is Islamophobic. Not every Muslim in America is on tape yucking it up about how funny terrorism is. But speaking of terror, Ayanna Pressley, another member of the squad, she's like the squad's affirmative action pity case. She refused to denounce the Antifa terrorist in the halls of Congress. I mean, is it really hard for her to say that Antifa terrorists who attacked the ICE facility in Washington, is it really that hard for her to say, I disavow?
Really simple question. Will you condemn Antifa for attacking an ICE facility? It's very simple. Will you tell Americans not to attack violently ICE facilities?
Why is it difficult? Why is it difficult? It's difficult because she knows that's her base. And she knows if she disavows, she's going to lose votes. So she cannot disavow. She cannot disavow Antifa terrorists. And then she's all confused when someone calls her un-American. I wonder why.
gentleman from New York, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mr. Engel.
The gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel, is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to vote yes on this measure today. I do have concerns about how we're dealing with these issues, but obviously all forms of hatred and bigotry are intolerable, and we should go on the record in saying so. I'm voting for this because when I read the resolution, I agree with everything it says. But let me say this, to the criticism that the Democratic majority won't condemn anti-Semitism. A few weeks back, we took the virtually unprecedented step of accepting a Republican motion to recommit, the procedural tool the majority never supports because it condemned anti-Semitism. We were proud to set aside precedent to condemn anti-Semitism then, and in today's resolution, we're doing so again today. So contrary to what some are saying, that's twice in the course of a month that the Democratic majority is condemning anti-Semitism on the floor of the House. But I must say, the words spoken by our colleague from Minnesota last week touched a very real, very raw place for me. And my desire for the House to go on record again specifically condemning anti-Semitism wasn't a desire to single the gentlewoman out or to stifle debate on U.S. policy towards Israel. But it was a desire and need to say that certain words, no matter who utters them, have no place in our public discourse and indeed can be very dangerous. And when a member of our body speaks the way it speaks, the way the representative from Minnesota spoke, then we need to single it out and say we will not tolerate it. But in the last week, these problems have been compounded. Since the comments that sparked this controversy, the gentlewoman from Minnesota has become the target of vile racist Islamophobic smears and threats. One begets another, and we've got to put a stop to it now. That's horrific. Islamophobia has no place in this body or anywhere in the United States, and anti-Semitism certainly doesn't either. I wish we had had a separate resolution about anti-Semitism. I think we deserved it. I think it was wrong not to have it. I don't think we should mix everything. But I want to say very clearly and very loudly that anti-Semitism will never be tolerated by me, never be tolerated by this body, and no member of Congress should be making anti-Semitic statements. No member of Congress should be saying hurtful things and then not apologizing for them. So I hope we can put everything together, support this resolution. It condemns all kinds of hatred, whether it's Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, any kind of hatred. That's what we need to do. And every time that anti-Semitism rears its ugly head, we need to stop it. And this resolution is a fine resolution, and I will support it, but I am very disappointed that we weren't able to have a separate resolution to specifically condemn anti-Semitism and what our colleague said that really was a very hateful term. I hope we can put everything together in this House. I know we can. I know people on both sides of the aisle want to work together. We want to stomp out any form of hatred, particularly anti-Semitism. I will continue to work with anybody who wants to do that, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Do you continue to reserve? The gentleman from New York? Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my colleague from New York's statements just then. It's frankly a shame that he had to come say that in this context. But I appreciate what he said because he's right on. He's correct. And with that, I yield a minute and a half to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank the gentleman for yielding, and I fully associate myself with the comments from the gentleman from New York condemning anti-Semitism. Full stop. Entirely appropriate thing to do. I just think it's curious how we ended up here. I mean, we are having this debate right now because Democrats had an objection to something said by a Democrat. And so they launch off on this drafting project. And then lo and behold, I hear all the remarks on the floor, and a lot of the substance in the resolution is about President Trump and criticizing him and trying to open wounds. And so this is unfortunately becoming the new mantra of the left in the Congress. When they've got a problem that they can't solve, it must be President Trump's fault. It's a lot of the sentiment that we see echoed out of the Judiciary Committee, where there is no Russian collusion. The Mueller report is about to drop. Democrats know it is not going to allege Russian collusion, and so they have to launch an 81-pronged investigation to harass our president. They can't get their own house in order, so everything's got to be the fault of a president who is creating more economic opportunity, reducing unemployment, ending wars, and doing a heck of a job for the country. I thank the gentleman for Georgia, and I yield back.
I now yield 45 seconds to the distinguished gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Gottheimer.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a Jewish member of Congress who lost family in the Holocaust and whose grandfather fought the Nazis, I need no reminder about our responsibility to confront bigotry, hatred, and intolerance wherever it is found. No matter how hard one tries, the allegations